Unsung Heroes, Felipe, March 1931 to February 2016. Written and read by Victor D. Lopez. You were born 5 years before the Spanish Civil War that would see your father exiled. Language came later to you than to your little brother Manuel, and you stuttered for a time. Unlike those who speak incessantly with nothing to say, you were a quiet and reserved boy. Your mother mistook shyness for dimness, a tragic mistake that scarred you for life. When your brother Manuel died, at the age of 3, from meningitis, you heard your mom exclaim, "God took my bright boy and left me the dull one." You were 4 or 5. You never forgot those words. How could you? Yet you loved your mom with all your heart. But you also withdrew further into a shell, solitude your companion and best friend. You were in fact an exceptional child. Stuttering went away at 5 or so and never returned. And by the time you were in middle school, your teacher called your mom in for a rare conference and told her that yours was a gifted mind and that you should be prepared for university study in the sciences, particularly engineering. She wrote your father, exiled in Argentina, to tell him the good news, that your teachers believed you would be easily able to gain entrance to the then and now highly selective public university, where the seats were few, prized, and very difficult to attain based on merit-based competitive exams. Your father's response? Buy him a couple of oxen and let him plow the fields. That reply from a highly respected man who was a big fish in a tiny pond in his native Oleros of the time is beyond comprehension. He had apparently opted to preserve his own self-interest in having his son continue his family business and also work the family lands in his absence. That scar, too, was added to those that would never heal in your pure, huge heart. Left with no support for living expenses for college, all it would have required, you moved on, disappointed and hurt, but not angry or bitter. You would simply find another way. You took the competitive exams for 2 local military training schools that would provide an excellent vocational education and pay you a small salary in exchange for military service. Of hundreds of applicants for the prized few seats in each of the two institutions, you scored first for the toughest of the 2 and 13th for the second. You had your pick. You chose Fábrica de Armas, the lesser of the 2, so that a classmate who has scored just below the cutoff point at the better school could be admitted. That was you, always and forever. At the military school, you were finally in your element. You were able to become a world-class machinist there, a profession that would have gotten you well-paid work anywhere on earth for as long as you wanted it. You were truly a mechanical genius, who later on would add electronics, auto mechanics, and specialized welding to his toolkit through formal training. Given a well-stocked machine shop, you could reverse engineer every machine without blueprints and build duplicate machine shop. You became a gifted master mechanic and worked in-line and supervisory positions at a handful of companies throughout your life in Argentina and in the United States, including Westinghouse, Warner Lambert, and PepsiCo. You loved learning, especially in your fields, electronics, mechanics, and welding, and expected perfection in everything you did. Every difficult job at work was given to you, everywhere you worked. You would not sleep at night when a problem needed solving. You'd sketch and calculate and resketch solutions and worked even in your dreams with singular passion. You were more than a match for the academic and physical rigors of military school, but your life was difficult for you in the Franco era, when some instructors would deprecatingly refer to you as Rojo, Galician for red, reflecting your father's support for for the failed republic. Eventually, the abuse was too much for you to bear. Once, while standing at attention in a corridor with other cadets waiting for roll call, you were repeatedly poked in the back surreptitiously. Moving would cause demerits, and demerits could cause loss of points on your final grade and arrests for successive weekends. You took it a while. Then you lost your temper. You turned to the cadet behind you and in a fluid motion grabbed him by his buttoned jacket and one-handedly hung him up on a hook above a window where you were standing in line. He thrashed about, hanging by the back of his jacket, until he was brought down by irate military instructors. You got weekend arrests for many weeks and a 10% final grade reduction. A similar fate befell a co-worker a few years later in Buenos Aires, who called you a son of a whore. You lifted him by one hand by the throat and held him there until your co-workers intervened, forcibly persuading you to put him down. That lesson was learned by all in no uncertain terms. Leave Felipe's mom alone. You were incredibly strong, especially in your youth, no doubt in part because of the rigorous farm work, military school training, and competitive sports that you engaged in. As a teenager, you once unwisely bent down to pick up something in front of a ram, presenting the animal an irresistible target. It butted you and sent you flying into a haystack. It, too, quickly learned its lesson. You dusted yourself off, charged the ram, grabbed it by the horns, and twirled it around once, throwing it atop the same haystack it had you. The animal was unhurt, but learned to give you wide berth from that day forward. Overall, you were very slow to anger, absent head-butting, repeated pokings, or disrespectful references to your mom by anyone. I seldom saw you angry, and it was Mom, not you, who was the disciplinarian, slipper in hand. There were very few slaps from you for me. Mom would smack my behind with a slipper often. When I was little, mostly because I was a real pain, wanting to know, try, and do everything, completely oblivious to the meaning of the word no, or of my own limitations. Mom would sometimes insist you give me a proper beating. On one such occasion, for a forgotten transgression when I was 9, you took me to your bedroom, took off your belt, sat me next to you, and whipped your own arm and hands a few times, whispering to me, "Cry," which I was happy to do unbidden. Don't tell Mom. I did not. No doubt she knew. The prospect of serving in a military that considered you a traitor by blood became harder and harder to bear. And in the 3rd year of school, 1 year prior to graduation, you left to join your exiled father in Argentina to start a new life. You left behind a mother and 2 sisters you dearly loved to try your fortune in a new land. Your dog thereafter refused food, dying of grief. You arrived in Buenos Aires to see a father you had not seen for 14 years at the age of 17. You were too young to work legally, but looked older than your years, a shared trait with me. So you lied about your age and immediately found work as a machinist mechanic 1st grade. That was unheard of, and brought you some jealousy and complaint in the union shop. The union complained to the general manager about your top salary and rank. He answered, "I will give the same rank and salary to anyone in the company who can do what Felipe can do." No doubt the jealousy and grumblings continued by some for a time, but there were no takers, and you soon won the group over, becoming their protected baby brother. Mascot. Your dad left for Spain within a year or so of your arrival when Franco issued a general pardon to all dissidents who had not spilled blood, e.g. who had not been combatants. He wanted you to return to help him reclaim his family business, taken over by your mom in his absence with your help. But you refused to give up the high salary, respect, and independence denied you at home. You were perhaps 18 and alone, living in a single room by a schoolhouse you had shared with your dad. But you also found a new loving family in your Uncle Jose and one of your father's brothers and his family. Jose had one of his daughters, Nieves, and her husband, Emilio, and their children, Susana, Oscar, Ruben Gorde, and Osvaldo, became your new nuclear family. You married Mom in 1955 and had two failed business ventures in the quickly fading post-World War II Argentina of the late 1950s and early 1960s. The first machine shop left you with a small fortune in unpaid government contract work. The second, a grocery store, also failed due to hyperinflation and a credit extended too easily to needed customers. Throughout this, you continued earning an exceptionally good salary, but in the mid-1960s, nearly all of it went to pay back creditors of the failed grocery store. We had some really hard times. Someday I'll write about that in detail. Mom went to work as a maid, including for wealthy friends, and you left home at 4 a.m. every day to return long after dark to pay the bills. The only luxury you and Mom retained was my Catholic school tuition. There was no other extravagance. Not paying bills was never an option for you or Mom. It never entered your minds. It was not a matter of law or pride, but a matter of honor. There were at least 3 very lean years when you and Mom worked hard, earned very well, but we were truly poor. You and Mom took great pains to hide this from me and suffered great privation to insulate me as best you could from the fallout of a shattered economy and your refusal to cut your losses had done to life savings and to our once comfortable middle-class life. We came to the United States in the late 1960s after waiting for more than 3 years for visas to a new land of hope. Your sister and brother-in-law, Marisa and Manuel, made their own sacrifices to help bring us here. You had about $1,000 from the down payment of the sale of our tiny downsized home and Mom's pawned jewelry. Hyperinflation and the expenses ate up the remaining mortgage payments that were due. Other prized possessions were left in the trunk until you can reclaim them. You never did. Even airline tickets were paid for by Marisa and Manuel. You insisted upon arrival on written terms for repayment, including interest. You were hired on the spot on your first interview as a mechanic, first grade, despite not speaking a single word of English. 2 months later, the debt was repaid. Mom was working too, and we moved into our first apartment. You worked long hours, including Saturdays and daily overtime, to remake a nest egg. Declining health forced you to retire at 63, and shortly thereafter you and Mom moved out of Queens into Orange County. You bought a townhouse 2 hours from my permanent residence, upstate New York, and for the next decade were happy traveling with friends and visiting us often. Then things started to change. Heart issues, 2 pacemakers, colon cancer, melanoma, liver and kidney disease caused by your many medications, high blood pressure, gout, gallbladder surgery, diabetes. And you still moved forward like the Energizer Bunny, patched up, battered, scarred and bruised, but unstoppable and unflappable. Then Mom started to show signs of memory loss along with her other health issues. She was good at hiding her own ailments, and we noticed much too late that there were serious problems. 2 years ago, her dementia worsening, but still functional, she had gallbladder surgery with complications that required 4 separate surgeries in 3 months. She never recovered and had to be placed in a nursing home. Several, in fact. As at first she refused food, and you and I refused to simply let her waste away, which might have been kinder, but for the fact that mientras hay vida, hay esperanza, as Spaniards say. While there's life, there's hope. There is nothing beyond the power of God. And miracles do happen. For 2 years, you lived alone, refusing outside help, engendering numerous arguments about having someone go by a few times a week to help clean, cook, and do chores. You were nothing if not stubborn. Yet another shared trait. The last argument on the subject, about 2 weeks ago, ended in your crying. You'd accept no outside help until Mom returned home. Period. You were in great pain because of bulging discs in your spine and walked with one of those rolling seats with handlebars that Mom and I picked up for you some years ago. You'd sit as needed when the pain was too much, then continue with very little by way of complaints. 10 days ago, you finally agreed that you needed to get to the hospital to drain abdominal fluid. Your failing liver produced it, and it swelled your abdomen and lower extremities to the point where putting on shoes or clothing was very difficult, as was breathing. You called me from a local store crying that you could not find pants that would fit you. We talked long distance, and I calmed you down, as always, not allowing you to wallow in self-pity, but trying to help. You went home and found a new pair of stretch pants Alice and I had brought you, and you were happy. You had 2 changes of clothes that still fit to take to the hospital. No sweat. All was well. The procedure was not dangerous, and you'd undergone it several times in recent years. It would require a couple of days' stay at most at the hospital, and I'd see you again on the weekend. I could not be with you on Monday, February 22nd, when you had to go to the hospital, as I nearly always had, because of work. You were supposed to be admitted the previous Friday, but doctors have days off too, and yours could not see you until Monday, when I could not get off work. But you were not concerned. This was just routine. You'd be fine. I'd see you in just a few days. We'd go see Mom Friday, when you'd be much lighter and feel much better. Perhaps we'd go shopping for clothes if the procedure still left you too bloated for your usual clothing. You drove to the doctor and then transported by ambulette to the hospital. I was concerned, but not too worried. You called me sometime between 5 and 6 p.m. to tell me you were fine. Resting. Don't worry, I'm safe here and well cared for. We talked for a little while about the usual things, with my assuring you that I'd see you Friday or Saturday. You were tired and wanted to sleep, and I told you to call me if you woke later that night, or I'd speak to you the following morning. Around 10 p.m., I got a call from your cell phone and answered in the usual upbeat manner. Hey, Papi. On the other side was a nurse telling me my dad had fallen. I assured her she was mistaken, as my dad was there for a routine procedure to drain abdominal fluid. You don't understand. He fell from his bed and struck his head on a nightstand, or something, and his heart has stopped. We're working on him for 20 minutes, and it doesn't look good. Can you get here? I could not. I had had 2 or 3 glasses of wine shortly before the call with dinner. I could not drive the 3 hours to Middletown. I cried. I prayed. 15 minutes later, I got the call that you were gone. Lost in grief, not knowing what to do, I called my wife. Shortly thereafter came a call from the coroner. An autopsy was required. I could not see you on the following day. 4 days later, your body was finally released to the funeral director I had selected for his experience with the process of interment in Spain. I saw you for the last time to identify your body. I kissed my fingers and touched your mangled brow. I could not even have the comfort of an open casket viewing. You wanted cremation. Your body awaits it as I write this. You were alone, even in death, alone. In the hospital, the strangers worked on you, in the medical examiner's office as you waited the autopsy, in the autopsy table as they poked and prodded, and further rent your flesh looking for irrelevant clues that would change nothing and benefit no one, least of all you. I could not be with you for days, and then only for a painful moment, as they would not let me see you before releasing the body. We will have a memorial service next Friday with your ashes and a mass on Sunday. I will never again see you in this life. Alice and I will take you home to your hometown, to the cemetery in Oledos, La Coruña, Spain, this summer. There you will wait the love of your life, who will join you in the fullness of time. She could not understand my tears or your passing. There is one blessing to dementia. She asks for her mom. She's worried because she has not come to visit her for some time. She is coming, she assures me, whenever I see her. You visited her every day, except when health absolutely prevented it. You spent this February 10th apart, your 61st wedding anniversary, too sick to visit her. Nor was I there for the first time. I hope you did not realize you were apart on the 10th, but I doubt that to have been the case. I did not mention it, hoping you'd forgotten, and neither did you. You are my link to Mom. She cannot dial or answer a phone, so you would put your cell phone to her ear whenever I was not in class or in a meeting and could speak to her at a time when you were with her. She always recognized me by phone. I am 3 hours from her. I could visit at most once or twice a month. Now even that phone line is severed. Mom is completely alone, afraid, confused, and I cannot, in the short term at least, do much about that. You were not supposed to die first. It was my greatest fear, and yours. But as with so many things that we cannot change, I put it in the back of my mind. It kept me up many nights, but like you, I still believed and believe in miracles. I would speak every night with you, often for an hour on the way home from work late at night during my hour-long commute, or from home on days I worked from home as I cooked dinner. I mostly let you talk, trying to give you what comfort of a social outlet I could. You were lonely, sad, stuck in an endless cycle of emotional and physical pain. Lately, you were especially reticent to get off the phone. When Mom was home, and still relatively well, I'd call every day too, but usually spoke to you only a few minutes before you transfer the phone to Mom, with whom I usually chatted much, much longer. For months, you had difficulty hanging up. I knew you did not want to go back to the couch, to a meaningless TV program, or to writing more bills. You'd say goodbye, or enough for today, and immediately begin another thread, then repeat the cycle, sometimes 5 or 6 times. You even told me, at least once, crying recently, just hang up on me, or I'll just keep talking. I loved you, Dad, with all my heart. We argued, and I'd often scream at you in frustration, knowing you would never take it to heart, and would usually just ignore me and do as you pleased. I knew how desperately you needed me, and I tried to be as patient as I could be. But there were days when I was just too tired, too frustrated, too full of other problems. There were days when I got frustrated with you, just staying on the phone for an hour when I needed to call Alice, to eat my cold dinner, or even to watch a favorite program. I felt guilty, and very seldom cut a conversation short. But I was frustrated nonetheless, even knowing how much you needed me, and also how much I needed you, and how little you asked of me. How I would love to hear your voice again, even if you wanted to complain about the same old things, or tell me in minutest detail some unimportant aspect of your day. I thought I would have you a little longer. A year? 2? God only knew, and I could hope. It would be time. I had so much more to share with you, so much more to learn when life eased up a bit. You taught me to fish, it did not take, and to hunt, that took even less, and much of what I know about mechanics and electronics. We worked on our cars together for years, from brake jobs to mufflers to real tune-ups in the days when points, condensers, and timing lights had meaning, to rebuilding carburetors and fixing rust and dents and power windows and more. We were friends, good friends, who went on Sunday drives to favorite restaurants or shopping for tools when I was single and lived at home. You taught me everything in life that I needed to know about all the things that matter. The rest is meaningless paper and window dressing. I knew all your very few faults and your many colossal strengths, and I knew you to be the better man. Not even close. I could never do what you did. I could never excel in my fields as you did in yours. You were the real deal in every way, from every angle, throughout your life. I did not always treat you that way, but I loved you very deeply, as anyone who knows us knows it. Most importantly, you knew it. I told you often, unembarrassed in the telling. I love you, Dad. The world was enriched by your journey. You do not leave behind wealth or a body of work to outlive you. You never had your 15 minutes in the sun, but you mattered. God knows your virtue, your absolute integrity, and the purity of your heart. I will never know a better man, and I will love you and miss you and carry you in my heart every day of my life. God bless you, Dad.